You see it everywhere, right? Companies are pouring billions of dollars into artificial intelligence, hoping it's going to change everything. But there's this weird paradox at the heart of the AI boom. For all that cash being spent, a lot of companies are seeing, well, not much. In this explainer, we're going to dig into why that's happening, and more importantly, what we can do to fix it. And to really get a handle on the hype, you've got to start here. AI pioneer Andrew Ng famously said, "AI is the new electricity." The whole idea is that just like electricity flipped every single industry on its head a century ago, AI is about to do the exact same thing. The thinking is, this is a fundamental, game-changing utility. Okay, but here comes the reality check, and it is a shocking one. Despite all that incredible promise, a study found that a staggering 70%, 70, of companies get minimal or even zero impact from their AI projects. So, what's going on here? Where is all that potential and, frankly, all that money disappearing to? All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at why the normal rulebook for projects just gets thrown out the window with AI. Then, we'll walk through a framework that's actually built for success and its life cycle. We'll also cover what needs to happen after you launch, and finally, tie it all together to see how this lets you manage the future. Okay, so the first thing we have to get is the root of the problem. Most companies are trying to manage these complex AI projects using the same old playbook they use for everything else. And, spoiler alert, it just doesn't work. And this is really the heart of the matter. A traditional project, like building a bridge or coding some standard software, is linear. You know what you're building, you have the specs, and you're pretty certain what you'll get at the end. Data science? It's the complete opposite. It is all about experimentation and discovery. It's not a straight line. It's a loop. And there's huge uncertainty. You have no idea if you'll find gold until you start digging. This whole situation has led to what the folks at Gartner call a state of alchemy. Because there's no repeatable process, companies get totally dependent on a few data science wizards. It feels like magic when it works, but it's a huge problem because you can't build a company strategy around a few people whose methods are a total mystery. It just doesn't scale. And, the numbers absolutely back this up. In one survey, 85% of organizations said their AI projects needed extensive experimentation. This isn't just engineering. It's much closer to scientific research. You form a hypothesis, you run experiments, and hey, sometimes the experiments prove you wrong. Trying to cram that process into a rigid, step-by-step plan is just a recipe for disaster. So you might be wondering, where does all the time actually go in these projects? Well, a massive 70 to 80% of a typical project isn't the sexy model building part. Nope. It's the grunt work of data preparation, finding the data, cleaning it, getting it into shape. This is a colossal bottleneck that traditional project plans almost never give enough time for. Okay, so if the old playbook is useless, what's the answer? Right? We have to move away from this chaotic world of alchemy and wizardry and start using a disciplined process that's actually designed for the unique world of data science. Look, the key here isn't trying to find more wizards. The solution is to build a system, a fit-for-purpose project management lifecycle that lets your whole team succeed over and over again in a way you can actually scale. It all comes down to process. That's the real key to unlocking AI's value. So let's do it. Let's walk through what this lifecycle actually looks like, this step-by-step regimen that's tailored for these unique, experiment-driven projects. So this whole framework is built around 4 main phases. And what's so critical, so important, is that it starts not with data, but with a deep understanding of the business. From there, you move into rigorous planning and feasibility. Only then do you get to the core execution and modeling, and then finally evaluation and deployment to make sure the thing actually works and delivers value.
All right, step 1. And I gotta tell you, this is the most critical step, and it's the one that gets skipped all the time. Before anyone writes a single line of code, you have to answer these fundamental questions. What actual business decision are we trying to make better? How does this project actually create value? What does success even look like? Is it dollars saved? Is it happier customers? If you can't answer these clearly, the project is already built on sand.
Okay, next up is a really rigorous feasibility check. This is where you stress test the idea before you sink a ton of money and time into it. And you gotta look at it from every angle. Technically, do we even have the right data, the right people, the right tools? Economically, is the potential reward here actually bigger than the cost? Operationally, can our teams actually use this thing in their daily work? And critically, is it legal? Is it ethical? Is it compliant? Answering these tough questions up front saves so much pain later on. So once a project actually passes that test, you get into the core loop of execution. This is what most people think of as the AI project, building models, testing them, tweaking them, and doing it all over again. The final step, of course, is deployment, getting that model out of the lab and into the real world where it can start doing its job. But wait, here's another huge mistake people make. They think that once the model is deployed, the project is done. High fives all around. But for an AI model, deployment isn't the finish line. It's actually the starting line for a whole new phase of work. See, after you launch, two absolutely critical things have to happen: monitoring and evaluation. Monitoring is the continuous, real-time technical checkup. Think of it like the dashboard in your car. Is the model's accuracy still good? Is the data flowing correctly? Evaluation is different. That's the periodic, big-picture business review. 6 months later, did we actually hit our financial goals with this thing? What did we learn? Now, one of the biggest reasons you need to do all this monitoring is something called model drift. The world doesn't stand still, right? Customer behavior changes, markets shift, new products launch. An AI model trained on old data will slowly get worse and worse as the real world drifts away from what it learned. Without monitoring, a model that was once a huge asset can become totally useless, or even start making harmful decisions.
And finally, a really mature process understands that all projects have to end. And get this, termination isn't always a bad thing. It can be a smart, strategic choice. A project might end by extinction. Hey, we did it, mission accomplished. It could be an addition, where the model just becomes a normal part of how the business runs. Or, it might end by starvation, because priorities changed and the resources need to go elsewhere. The point is, it should be an active decision, not just letting a project fade away.
So after all this, what's the big payoff? What do you get for all this disciplined work? It's about building a predictable, scalable engine that lets you truly innovate. I want you to think about it like this. An ambitious AI goal is like trying to launch a rocket. Your data scientists, your amazing models, that's the powerful fuel. But without the carefully engineered rocket ship of disciplined project management, the guidance systems, the launch control, all that fuel and power just leads to a big, expensive explosion right on the launch pad.
And believe me, the stakes here are absolutely enormous. According to the research that inspired this explainer, with these effective project management practices, you can recover up to 76% of the financial waste in AI projects. Think about that. That's a staggering amount of value just being wasted because organizations aren't using the right approach.
So that brings us to the final question, the one I want to leave you with. If AI really is the new electricity, then maybe, just maybe, disciplined project management is the grid. The essential, non-negotiable infrastructure we need to actually deliver that power and light up our future.